Hi, everybody. Brian from Bearable Traders here. It's the weekend, Saturday, July 13th, and I hope everyone's having a good weekend. This, of course, is the weekend video. We go over what happened last week in the markets, and there was some interesting inflation data that came out, and we'll look at that, and then we'll take a look ahead and see what we got coming up this week. We're getting into earnings season, as you probably know, so lots to digest over the coming weeks. So let's get down to it. All right, so let's start out by taking a look at what happened last week. Quick review, as we always do. Of course, the big news that was coming out this week was the CPI and PPI data, the read on inflation. CPI came out Thursday, was down 0.1% versus 0.1% that was the expected number. So again, good read on inflation, I guess, if you're hoping for rate cuts and decreasing inflation. And so, but the markets initially gapped up on that news and then sold off. So we'll get into discussing what happened there. There's some interesting internal dynamics that were going on in the market. PPI came out Friday morning. It was hotter than expected, 0.2% versus the 0.1 expected. And this is what the producer sees in terms of inflation. So that sort of eventually gets passed on to the consumer. So this is more of a leading indicator of where inflation is going. So the market initially dropped on that, and then sort of bounced back a little bit Friday after digesting that news. So again, interesting dynamics in the market there. Treasury yield certainly fell significantly this week after we got that CPI reading. Everyone's excited about coming rate cuts, and now the September rate cut odds on favorite are just about 90% now, according to the Fed CME Fed Watch tool. Indexes mostly ended up on the week. The Qs were down a little bit. The SPY up and the Dow up, but the real big winner here was the IWM, 6.1%. Again, this was because the interest rates fell. A lot of interest rate sensitive stocks here, small caps that need to borrow money. So when they think interest rates are going to drop, a lot of money rotates into that sector. So the sectors that seem to do the best this week, real estate and utilities. Of course, with interest rates drop, then these tend to do fairly well. Energy and communications were down the most on the week. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we saw both the 2-year and the 10-year a drop on the week. US dollar also dropped because as these interest rates go down, so does the dollar against some of the other currencies. And Bitcoin's really been taking a bit of a beating here. It's down into an area where it should be seeing some support, and we'll see if it can hold there. So that was the week in review. Okay, so before we go on here, I always like to do a quick plug for my books that are available on Amazon. You can see them there, Profiting as an Active Trader, How to Swing Trade, my oldest book, and my latest book, How to Trade Options. And you'll notice I do talk a lot about options trades in the room here or on the video as well. So if you want to check those books out, they are available for sale. So let's get down and look at some charts here. All right, so let's start out with the treasuries as we always do, sort of the tail that wags the dog of the market. And you can see here, as we mentioned earlier in the recap from last week, interest rates really rolled over Thursday and Friday as the inflation data seemed to come in and indicate that we are seeing a drop in price increases, and hopefully the Fed will be looking to cut rates as early as September. And you can see here, same comment on the 10-year as we start to come down into an area where there's been support in the past. We'll keep an eye on that to see if we break down, but we've certainly lost these moving averages that are often provide support. As far as the transports go, this last week we had a big jump up on Thursday after the CPI data came out and then the PPI data came out, but we did kind of pull back here, and you'll see that with a lot of these charts for Friday. We had a pretty significant sell-off going into the close on Friday, which was kind of interesting. Transports, again, we're kind of trading in a bit of a range here, but maybe retesting an area where we failed before. Pretty decent volume for the week. And let's take a look at the Dow again, sort of moving up nicely here. the Dow, and again, pretty significant pullback after. And again, a lot of that happened right into the close, as I think a lot of the momentum traders chased that up during the day, and there was some selling going into the close here. But you can see we're right back at an area where we've tested highs before and pulled back. So, but this here is a higher low. So we'll be watching this next week, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on some of the earnings that come out. If we still get some good earnings, we could push higher through this 40,000, and we've got momentum coming back into the market as well, and you can see stochastic starting to turn up again. So momentum certainly on the side of the bulls for a continuation move on the Dow. Again, we had this big rollover on Friday after we got the CPI data. And what really happened here was this was a reflection of a lot of selling in some of the high-flying tech sector, NVIDIA, Meta, a lot of these sort of heavy, these stocks that have a lot of weighting on the Qs, they sold off. But if you looked at the actual market internals, there were more advancers and decliners, but the advancers were the ones that didn't have as much influence on the market index. So you can see here we had the big sell-off on the Qs, but it didn't necessarily reflect across the board selling, more selective sort of profit-taking / selling. And you can see here the PPI data came out a little hotter than expected, and actually we rallied back up on Friday, but then again, as I said, we really sold off into the close here. So kind of an internal or inside day on Friday on the Qs. And again, here we're kind of through an indecision candle on the week. So again, a lot of it's going to depend on how we see earnings going forward. But yeah, on the week, pretty decent volume. We are pretty overbought here, so I wouldn't be surprised see a little bit of a pullback on the Qs. Same sort of comments on the SPY as the Qs. I won't repeat myself, but you can kind of ditto that. We did make a new high on the SPY. You can see here we're just continuing to creep higher. We are pretty overbought. If you look at the RSI, pretty extended here, and going to need some good earnings to keep this momentum going. IWM, this was a trade I did on Thursday. I got into the IWM when it gapped up and started to push higher. I just stuck with it, and I actually held a lot of it over on Friday because I thought we would get some decent carry through, which we did. And so yeah, it was a rotation of money out of the high-flying tech sector, and it was money was going to work in the small caps as the interest rates fell. So really decent volume here. So where do we go from here? I'm not 100% sure. We didn't have a great day on Friday. If you look at that, that candle is not exactly a great looking candle there. It's pretty much opened and closed around the same level and sort of at the bottom. If you look on a monthly, this is, don't usually look at monthly charts, but let's go out a little further here. You can see 220. Pretty significant area of resistance back here in 2021. Really had trouble breaking through there. So do we have room to run? Do we have room to run a little higher? Yes, we do. But there again, we're going to hit some pretty significant levels of resistance when we get there. The volatility really is just bottoming along here, not really changing much. Just staying very low, no sign of fear of a big sell-off in the market. This is the dollar, of course, as interest rates, as we got the interest rates drop on the treasuries, the dollar fell as well here. So you can see it rolling over, maybe going to test this 28.50 level, which is where we had some support before, and this moving average. But if interest rates continue to drop, we will continue to see some dropping of the value of the dollar as well. So you can see here we bottomed out a little bit on Bitcoin. So we're trading around 59,600 at this point. You can see here we came down, tested this level that we had back in April, and again July 1st week, and now we're testing this again. But you know, we've kind of made a double top here. We made a lower high. Here's your pullback. Here's your second pullbacks, I should say a lower low, not a lower high. So you can see this first pullback, and then the second pullback was lower. So we'll see what we can do here, but this, this trend seems to be moving at least downward at this point. So we'll see if we can bounce back from this 55,000, which seems to be an area of pretty significant support right now. And that's the indexes for the week. So let's go over some of the current positions I'm in right now. You can see here I'm still on these 260. There's a 260 calls that are going to expire next month. So again, just letting them run out here. That was a pretty decent options trade. Just sold some calls, holding on to them because I'm short them and they're going to expire worthless. Gold moved up nicely here during the week, and I picked up some gold again. You can see here we kind of did a bit of an inverse head and shoulders on this pullback, and now gold making some new highs here. Had a nice day on Thursday and Friday as well. So the GDX is a gold miner ETF, and this is a good way to play a sector. You don't have to play a particular miner like GOLD, which would be Barrick. You can diversify your holdings if you're just bullish on the mining sector overall, the gold mining sector overall. You can pick up a ETF that has a bunch of them, so you don't have individual risk in a holding. We are getting pretty overbought here. You can see stochastics up quite high. We're getting up over 70 on RSI. But again, we can we can go through that 70 level and keep going higher. As you can see back here, we can remain over over 70 for some time. So it's really more a momentum indicator than anything. But nice volume on GLD as well. They're gold miners as well. So sticking with that. TLT, this is a position I've had for a while. Still short the 91 call puts, I should say. TNA was, again, I mentioned that earlier. Picked up. This is a way to play the IWM. So I picked up some TNA shares on Thursday as we gapped up, and then really started to rally on prospect of lower interest rates. Sold a lot of it when we got up on Friday when we gapped up and kind of moved up a little bit. I sold most of it, and I'm glad I did, because I'm not really sure where it's going to go from here. It looks like we kind of hit a top here, prior level of resistance, and that PPI data I think is a little bit concerning to me, because that's a little bit more forward looking than the CPI data. So I'm not sure what the market's going to do with that, although it didn't seem to bother anybody on Friday as the market rallied after that number came out. I'm along a little bit of XLE, got long on Friday, and kind of like the way it looked. It looks like it's getting ready to break out here. If we draw a line down here, I'm going to annotate this. I draw a line down here. This is a pretty interesting and typical pattern. You get a trend line, you break through that, you come back and retest it, and then you bounce off it, and maybe that's a change in trend. We've got RSI back over 50, so and stochastics starting to turn up again. So I'm long a little bit of XLE, and that's a relatively new position for me. So there you go, and that's my current positions right now. I bailed on a lot of the Mag 7 names I was in, just because they're starting to look really toppy, but we'll take a look at those when we look at potentials. So quick look at some stocks I'll be looking at next week. Again, earnings season, so we try to stay away from anything that's reporting or might be impacted by something reporting, like a stock that might trade in sympathy. But Apple's still looking quite interesting here, kind of holding this 225 level as an options trade. Could be good to sell some puts down here, or even at the 220s. This is an area where we broke out from, so collect some premium there. And maybe if you felt bullish, you could actually use that money to buy some higher calls. But we did get pretty overbought here. A little bit of a pullback, but certainly Apple seems to be in favor. if you just watch how strong it has been even during the day, it just seems to continue to get buyers. Boeing again, just kind of holding this level here, 175. I'm not expecting a big move one way or another, so that's another opportunity to sell sell puts and calls if you're an options trader. Meta's had quite a pullback here, and I think this is an area where we're down close to this, this 490 level. I think is going to be an area where we've had pretty significant support before. So if you wanted to take a risk, you could sell some options or at 490s and then buy some 470s just to cover your position. That's sort of doing a bit of a spread, or you could go long Meta. I think it's probably maybe a little bit oversold here. I'd be more inclined to use options just because of the price of the stock here, but I think we're coming down into an area where there could be some support. Same with Netflix, same sort of comments here. You can see we're coming to this moving average, this 50 moving average here, and I think we may find some support here around the 640 level. It's had a pretty couple of rough days here, so maybe getting a little bit oversold and getting into an area where there should be some support. You can see a fair amount of support here, the prior resistance here, and then this area became support. So again, looks kind of interesting there. So that's what a couple of stocks I'm looking at for next week. Okay, so let's wrap things up here. You can see there's your levels on the Dow right at an even 40,000. The other levels with support and resistance. Monday we got Fed Powell speaking again, and what he was saying last week, I think gave the market hope again that there was going to be some interest rate cuts. So probably reiterate a lot of the stuff he said last week. We do have housing starts. We've got retail sales. So some interesting stuff coming up this week as well. As far as earnings go, we got some more financials, Goldman Sachs and Blackstone. We've got Netflix, which is coming up on Thursday after the close. Taiwan Semi before the open on Thursday. So yeah, again, getting into earnings season. So it should be a interesting and another volatile week in the market. So hang on to your hats, and in the meantime, before we hit Monday, enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone, and we will see you. Hopefully we'll be starting our pre-market show as usual, 8 o'clock, and live on YouTube as well as for our members, and then trading the market open at 9:30 and also live on YouTube as well. So come and join us if you can, and we will hopefully see you Monday. Bye for now.